Hi, thanks for joining us at the Odgers Berndtson One Question series. My name is Jules McKean and I run the global media sector for Odgers Berndtson Executive Search. I am delighted to be joined today by Dan Clays. Hi, Dan.
Hello.
Dan is, as you probably all know, Chief Executive Officer of Omnicom Media Group in the UK. He's responsible for the overall business performance, client delivery, and future growth strategy of Omnicom's media agencies and its centralised expert operations in the UK. As Chief Exec of OMG, he provides insight, guidance, and support across OMD UK, PhD, Manning Gottlieb OMD, Hearts and Science, and alongside OMG Centres of Excellence, including Transact, Drum, Fuse, and Unite. Dan's also chair of the UK Advertising and Media Industry non-profit education programme, Media Smart. So Dan, it is quite a year for media in general.
It is.
I am delighted to be able to ask somebody of your great calibre and depth what you think, how you think our industry is adapting or failing to adapt to what this year's got us on the hook for.
Yeah, well, I think the first thing to say is that when we all returned from the festive break, in many ways the year has started with a quiet sense of optimism. Talking to lots of clients right now, as you can imagine, as we come back into the new year, unmistakably it's a challenging market for the consumer. There's some information released today around the Consumer Confidence Index, which is a near all-time low. I read a concerning report today about consumers looking at kind of the cost of health and well-being, which is the last thing any of us need, and obviously the cost of business. Fuel, delivery, supply chain challenges. Of course, it's a challenging time. We all know that. At the same time, I think, as I say, there's a sense of optimism. We are probably past the point of peak energy prices. The inflation appears to be slowing. Bank of England talked today about rapid reductions in spring. Shipping costs getting back to pre-pandemic levels. So there is this sort of underlying sense of cautious optimism, and statistically, we didn't enter the recession that a lot of analysts talked about back in November. The economy grew 1.1% versus any contraction. So I think when you add all those things up, there is this sense of optimism. And then when you look specifically at the media and advertising marketplace, the spend is unquestionably proving far more resilient than it has been for advertising and media than any previous downturn. And if we are entering into a recession, this will be the first time that advertising has continued to grow through a period like that. And I think the reason it's holding up well is, we've historically pegged advertising to GDP. We're seeing probably a model where that is decoupling now, and clients are looking at their media investment very much as critical to their growth strategy. It's not a cost that they're looking to remove. Most are looking to, are definitely not looking to remove it as a sort of faster route to maintaining profit levels. It's seen as a critical vehicle or lever, I should say, for growth and for generating demand and maintaining share of voice. Is key to long-term growth, and brands that in the pandemic period pulled back found it harder to recover. So we're definitely.
I was going to ask you if the COVID had something to do with it, because it felt like on the talent front and on the media spend front, they sort of matched each other. That people cut those things first and then found it harder to buy their way back into the market again.
Yeah, I think there were brands that through that period, particularly ones that were relevant during that when we were spending more time at home, etc. Those brands that continued to invest through that period gained faster back as the economy recovered, and I think brands that felt silent or pulled back for one reason or another found it harder to get those brand metrics back up, and then obviously the knock-on effect of that in terms of business performance. So I think that learning was a significant one. I'm sensing that clients that have got a requirement for shorter-term payback are possibly finding it a little bit more challenging. Reduced levels of return on ad spend potentially is some of the commentary I heard at a meeting I was at earlier this week. Not from any of our clients, but just from other people talking about it. But broadly speaking, I think the real sense is that that clients are continuing to invest, and we're very much seen as a key partner with clients in how we can use that media investment to ensure we're continuing to grow through this period.
Do you feel that, because actually that's quite a destabilizing period, wasn't it, the end of last year, when the news, and particularly with the Liz Truss disruption and the, I'm not going to call it what they call it in news, but the kind of the tax that we're still paying to some extent of that. For you as a leader of a large organization and with multiple brands, who all of whom are, really important, critical kind of cultures in their own right, has it been quite challenging to kind of ride this interesting sort of external media wave of terrible, oh my god, we're going straight into a recession, it's going to be as bad as it was since Great Depression, and then kind of through Christmas thinking, well, people, our clients are starting to are really maintaining and they're listening to advice, and then you're coming out, you're trying to manage those people. How do you approach that as a chief exec?
Well, I think you can talk yourself into a recession, can't you, as a country? And I think that was on everyone's radar as we closed out the year, and there was a sense of awareness around that. And I think we're starting to avoid it. And again, fantastic piece in the Sunday Times at the weekend talking about reasons to be cheerful. And I feel like the mood had changed. And I wonder whether the period of stability that we've most recently experienced in government after all the change, 2022 was just such a remarkable year in many senses, and now, if anything, it's, as we all know, I think it's quieted down in many respects, and I think that's helped. And then when it comes to advertising, I think talking to a lot of clients, I think they're very aware that the advertising that they are creating does have an impact on culture. A brilliant example of this is the McDonald's ad. Have you seen it? The raising eyebrows, which builds off a brilliant piece of insight, and just a signal around, whether you fancy McDonald's. I'm doing it to you now, right?
Yeah, it's really smart.
It's that time of day actually where I'm genuinely thinking about it. It's just fantastic advertising, and the comments that I read around it in our industry, with people recognizing that it was just fantastic advertising that would just lighten up the audiences and reminded everybody about the role that advertising can play. And it can be really entertaining and be effective at the same time. And I think we're probably going to see more of that this year.
Interesting.
And, many marketers that I talk to often want to try and get a hand on how can we work with you in media to make sure our brand is part of culture. How can we get into new spaces? How can we talk to under targeted audiences? How can we be more diverse in our portrayal of our brand? But how can we be part of culture? How can we get closer to really understanding the truth of youth? OMD UK, one of our agencies, have just done a brilliant piece of research about really understanding the Gen Z audience, and I think that is born out of a need to make sure brands are talking to audiences in a way that resonates, because they recognise that being part of culture is a really important requirement as a brand. So yeah, it's definitely a key area.
That's really interesting, because I wonder if I might be stretching this too far, and tell me if I am, but it definitely feels like we're coming out of a sort of 5-year cycle of everyone being focused on customer acquisition at any cost. And and particularly in digital spend, it feels like actually creativity got entirely lost within that as a sort of nice to have. But actually, to your point, those big seismic adverts, I mean, even just there was a sort of, somebody put something on Twitter the other day, she said she found a book in a bookshop that she didn't think was still in print, and about 15 of us immediately said, oh, was it Fly Fishing by J.R. Hartley? And you kind of think these things are important, like that has lasted 20 odd years, and we'd lost that for such a long time. And it does sound from what you're saying is that there's an understanding of the disproportionate cut through that good creative, and I mean creative media planning also, can really do to engage people beyond just, I need to hit the numbers on my Facebook advertising to hit 20 to 25-year-olds that live in London.
Yeah,
Is that a stretch or is that fair?
no, I think that's fair. I think there's absolutely an appreciation that creativity and the power of brands is really, really important. Definitely. I think what comes with that is greater focus around measurement and
Yeah.
incrementality. How do I make sure that that investment is paying back in the right channels? How do I avoid over duplication of reach? Am I, when I'm investing in an increasingly fragmented video marketplace, am I making sure that is the most optimized plan? I think we're in a world where we're balancing the need for transformative thinking. How do I get into new channels? How do I, unlock the power of different kinds of tech, etc. But at the same time, incrementality. If there's one word I've heard a lot of spoken recently, it's incrementality. How do I make sure that investment is genuinely driving incremental performance? And that links back to, it's not about whether it's brand advertising, performance advertising. I think that is through everything, and you can't connect the two things. So measurement is absolutely key.
I was just about to ask you, it feels like measurement of those linear channels and things is coming to the fore. There's a lack of consistency. You're hearing that a lot, and that plays into what you're saying.
Yeah, it's measurement, it's faster understanding of outcomes and performance. You can't go in sort of quarterly cycles. You've got to balance what would be historically kind of MMM type analysis with attribution, and both of those things both of those aspects of measurement have had to evolve for different reasons. And so how can we get a richer understanding on a more frequent basis about the performance of our investment? Yes, I'm very much willing and recognize the need to invest in our brand, but how can I ensure that it's having a through effect into the performance of our business and the incremental growth? So that is definitely an area. As you said, smart planning is really, really key. So again, how do I ensure that I'm being more data driven? How am I finding new audiences? How am I getting to underrepresented audiences? How am I using new channels in the right way? So smarter planning. And then where I think the performance world is evolving is definitely in the social commerce space.
Yes, interesting.
I saw some really good stats about how social platforms are increasingly a first port of call as a search function, not just a search engine. So rapid growth. We're all going to use social platforms for commerce more. Like shopping's going to grow, retail media.
Yeah, gosh, massive.
Exponential growth. So the performance skill set has to evolve, and is evolving into those areas. We were talking earlier, weren't we, about we had an event yesterday with Meta where we talked to them about how we had about 150 clients come along. It was all about how they could unlock the opportunity on the Meta platforms with social commerce. And I think we had probably half of the guests responded to the invitation within 2 days of saying yes. This was pre-Christmas, and then they came. We braved the cold and they came yesterday. But I think that is an indication of why that is a high area to unlock. So that's probably the other bit. But interestingly, what we were talking about yesterday, going back to your earlier point, was within that environment, you've got discovery and inspiration of brands, you've got the opportunity to build consideration and then connect audiences with products. So all of that continuum, that brand performance in old money happens in the same place. So you can't sort of separate
and with one customer that you don't lose track of despite all of the challenges of the legislation. That's very interesting.
That's it. And the two things have to be done, in close conjunction, I would say.
Dan, that's brilliant. Thank you. So it sounds like strategy, creativity, performance metrics being appropriate for what you're looking at and the consistency there. There's to your earlier point, sounds like the Sunday Times are right, despite all of the headwinds, some reasons to be cheerful.
Definitely reasons to be cheerful. And, I think as people, I'm in a privileged position, responsible for a company that, we've got 1,700 people. And I think key thing for me coming back into this year was to help and enable everyone to feel really optimistic about the year ahead. Of course, there's going to be huge challenges. There's a lot going on in the world that's making things difficult, but at the same time, we stay focused on the priorities, we can be really optimistic. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to 2023.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for joining us with your
Absolute pleasure.
actually optimistic words, and that's a brilliant way to start the year. So thanks, Dan, and have a
Bye.
great 2023.
Anytime. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.